All right, we are 100 days away from the 2024 season kicking off. So we're going to spotlight a few teams here as we count down the days, starting with Arkansas. Sam Pittman may be on one of the hottest seats of all college coaches this season, coming off a 4-8 season in 2023. What can he do this year? Our Trey Biddy of hogsports.com joins me now with more. Trey, tough schedules are nothing new for Arkansas, but this is got to be one of the toughest they've seen in Pittman's time there. How is he handling this?
Yeah, it's very difficult, obviously, being the Arkansas coach. As he would say, somebody's trying to get me fired. He says that just about every year. There was a stat that came out in the last 10 years. Arkansas had played more top 25 teams than anybody in the SEC with 53. I think Missouri was on the other side of that with 30. So that just gives you an idea of how tough Arkansas' schedule has been. I mean, when you look at it, you start off, you're home away from home in Little Rock against UAPB in Little Rock. And then in week 2, you go to Oklahoma State, where Mike Gundy's in his 20th year. They've got a 7th-year senior at quarterback, and Arkansas is trying so much new stuff with a new quarterback and stuff like that. That's going to be a really, really big game. You come back home against UAB in week 3, and then you're on the road at Auburn, Texas A&M, and Arlington. I mean, this is not a schedule that's set up for a 4-8 team to have a lot of belief. I mean, you really got to, now you could overcome some obstacles, obviously, and build some momentum, but it's really difficult. And I would say, like, look at some other teams that Arkansas plays annually, like Missouri, for example. Missouri's going to be a preseason top 10 team. I've got their schedule pulled up here. They play Missouri State, Buffalo, Boston College in Columbia, Vanderbilt in Columbia. Their first tough game is Texas A&M in College Station, and then they play UMass. I mean, that's a schedule that's set up to keep a team in the top 10. Look at Ole Miss, Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, South Carolina. I mean, these are schedules that are going to keep these teams in the top 10, build some belief and momentum behind them, while Arkansas's, on the road, Oklahoma State, on the road, Auburn, at Arlington against Texas A&M. They don't even have a really good home game until Tennessee, and that's October 5th. So the air could be let out of the balloon by then. But if they can overcome it, then obviously there's a little more manageable second half if they can get to that point of the season with any momentum.
Now, 3 of the 4 teams on Arkansas's schedule weren't even in the SEC the last time Bobby Petrino was with the team. He is obviously just one of many storylines to watch this year. So what should we be watching for with the Hogs?
When last season came to an end and the way it was unfolding, they just couldn't put together wins, and they go 4-8. Not just 4-8, the way it ended with just getting blown out at home against Auburn, and then the final game of the season against Missouri, getting blown out in that one too, just kind of letting go of the rope after losing some close games early on. You started wondering, like, how do they keep Sam Pittman? How do they avoid the toxicity that's going to come with this offseason? And I just didn't see how they could possibly do it. I'm not sure that there is another hire for offensive coordinator that Arkansas could have made, aside from Bobby Petrino, that would have brought this fan base back on. And because you're kind of looking at it like, everybody's like, everybody's down on Pittman. They're not winning and stuff. And then it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's see what Bobby Petrino can do. Because the last thing that Arkansas fans remember about Bobby Petrino, aside from the incident and the way it ended with the motorcycle and all that stuff, is him winning 10 games in 2010 and then winning 11 games in 2011. And then it all unraveled, and Arkansas football hasn't been the same since. So, along with this brutal schedule that Arkansas has and seems to have every single year, Bobby Petrino coming back to Fayetteville is one of the wildest things. I mean, when you think about it, the way the football season ended, you go out and hire a guy like Bobby Petrino coming back to Fayetteville, something I never thought I would have saw it happen. And then you finish the basketball season with Eric Musselman going to USC, and what do? You hire John Calipari. I'm not sure there's 2 bigger, more exciting hires when you put them together in college sports. And so those are huge storylines. Bringing Bobby Petrino back to Arkansas is just wild, really, and I'm anxious to see how things do. I think the offense will be much better. So the problem is, I think everybody else in the middle, lower tier of the SEC is also going to be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exciting times for sure with both of those hires. Another challenge ahead for Pittman is he's going to have the first quarterback battle he's had in his 4 years in Fayetteville. So quarterbacks included, what are some players we need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, Taylor Green, I think it was obvious day one of spring football, like, okay, this guy's different. He's the starting quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Matt Jones, who was at Arkansas several years ago, a long strider at 6'6", a guy who can be very accurate. I thought he had a really good start to the spring, maybe had a little bit of a lull in the middle and then picked it up again. But he was obviously the starting quarterback. He was the former Mountain West Conference Freshman of the year, year before last. Last season, he was the Mountain West Conference Championship Game MVP. So he's got some good pedigree with him. Jaquindon Jackson, I think, is another guy at running back, the transfer from Utah. This is a guy that strikes me as someone with a chip on his shoulder that still feels like he's got something to prove. Everything I would ask him, he would kind of turn it into everybody's against me, in the spring press conferences and stuff. So I feel like he's a guy with something to prove. And Luke Has at tight end. Luke Has, I think he was on his way to being a freshman All-American last year. He was hurt in week 5. He was coming off a really big game against LSU. But I think he could be possibly the best tight end in the country from a number standpoint. He's going to be like Arkansas's go-to receiver. So watch out for Luke Has on offense. And then you flip it to the defensive side of the ball. Landon Jackson is a guy that's popped up on many way too early mock drafts in the first round. In fact, CBS had him in their mock draft in the first round at defensive end. 6'7", 282 pounds, really big, prototypical guy that can get after the quarterback. Jalen Braxton, I think, is another guy that's really kind of overlooked a little bit. He was a freshman last year at cornerback, started 6 games for him. He was hurt the last 2 games, but he's a guy with a lot of ability. The Florida game, I believe in week 10 when Arkansas went down there, Arkansas scored on their opening drive. Jalen Braxton had a strip and took it back, a strip 6, to put Arkansas up 14-0 and really build a ton of momentum for Arkansas as they went on to win that game in Gainesville. So there's some talent on Arkansas, and I think overall the roster is better than it was last year. I think the defense will be comparable to what it was. I think the offense will be better. But as I said, again, when you look at the middle tier, lower tier of the SEC, I just feel like everybody's going to be better. So how much better is Arkansas going to be than they were last year?
Arkansas opens the season August 29th. That's Trey Biddy with the latest. Thank you, Trey. And for more on the Razorbacks throughout the entire season, check out hogsports.com. Trey Biddy and his entire staff have got you covered through spring ball, summer headlines, fall camp, and of course, kickoff in August. Coming up on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, a new episode of Unfiltered with Carl Reed and Smoke Dixon. This time they're talking to UCLA first-year head coach Deshaun Foster. You can watch that this Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications so you don't miss it. And that's going to do it for us today on 24/7 Sports Live. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.